for nursing her son, now 4. Is the media making too much of this, or can this kind of parenting go too far? The woman on the cover of those magazines, Jamie Lynn Grumet, is with us tonight, along with Jeanne Ohm, the editor of Pathways to Family Wellness magazine. Jamie, I'm going to go to you first. It must have been intense to be in the middle of that media firestorm after being on the cover of the magazine. What motivated you to get in the middle of this again, go on another magazine?
We were really selective this time with how we wanted to do it. We wanted to be able to explain our story to our community. So we ended up choosing a nonprofit magazine that really geared their audience. It was more a holistic parenting magazine. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to tell our story just to this audience, and we're kind of surprised by how much national attention this is getting again.
Well, why do you think it does get so much attention?
I think there's a bigger issue here. I think the polarizing tagline was probably the main issue. The media-generated mommy wars was I think the main problem, and I think people really don't understand breastfeeding past infancy, and they're a little confused by it and uncomfortable with it.
What do you want people to know about it?
It's normal. It's really normal in other cultures. I was in Ethiopia 2 weeks ago, and seeing the women breastfeeding on the streets, breastfeeding their toddlers, breastfeeding their children of all ages, and it was just a wonderful experience. We were working with the Wasa Children's Projects there, and to know all of these children were breastfed up until even age 7 or 8. It's not uncommon. Now,
I'm looking at your picture on Time Magazine. They just flashed it up here on the screen. And two things I've noticed, or I've heard. One is that I think this was sort of a candid shot. You didn't expect this to be the shot they put on the cover. Is that accurate?
Yes, that was, we knew going into it that they could use an outtake. We were hoping they wouldn't. So maybe we were being naive to think that they were going to use a more nurturing shot, and they definitely had those. Time Lightbox actually posted it, and it was beautiful. I heard that was almost going to make the cover. I think that image plus the tagline was the big issue, because it was very confrontational.
I've noticed that my producers use every chance they get to flash that picture up. So it's something about the picture too. The people, I mean, the picture itself is very provocative. How do you feel about that picture of you being up there?
I'm not offended by the picture. I don't think it's the best representation, and especially because this is the first time some people were seeing breastfeeding past infancy, and that was a very, the shot was really disconnected, and my son's arms were dropped because he was tired. So I don't like the fact that we normally had our arms around each other, and the photographer was really lovely and didn't, whenever he dropped his arms a couple of times until we moved to a different position, and he realized he was tired.
All right.
Asked each time to put his arms around
All right, let's, Jeanne will be with you in a second. I want to take some calls. I think people have opinions about this. I want to hear them. Robert in California, you got something to say?
Hi, Dr. Drew.
Robert.
The thing that we don't understand about breastfeeding, that people don't recognize, is it's beneficial for the health of the child, and they're end up becoming smart as well. I mean, with good raising and everything. But I think the media gets titillated over this whole fiasco, but they forget that mother's milk came long before Similac.
All right. let me go to Jeanne and let her be explicit about the health benefits, because I believe all the pediatric associations recommend breastfeeding up until age 2. I think the issue here is beyond 2 and what the benefits are. It's a little controversial, but go ahead, Jeanne.
Hi, Dr. Drew. Great to be here. It is controversial, and although the American Academy of Pediatrics talks to allow children to breastfeed till about 2 years, the World Health Organization says we really need to be doing that further. 4 years is more applicable. And there's, in our magazine, we have Catherine Detweiler, and she talks about that really for humans, for human mammals, 5, 6 years of age is appropriate. Biologically, physiologically, how it affects the child, the bonding, the nurturing that they have with the mother. Sure, the content of the milk, but it's more than food, breastfeeding. It's an interaction. It's a security that the child achieves that gives them strength to step forward and be stronger. The more of that loving strength they have at the beginning, they can really step forward in life.
And I don't
be
think
stronger.
anyone disagrees with that. I mean, I think that's absolutely, it's how long to maintain it, I think, that people have issues. I talked to a late adolescent male once who was breastfed until he was like 6 or something, and he was very disturbed by it. Do you think that's because he lives in a culture where it's not normative?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't see that. It's like birth. We don't see births. We don't see women breastfeeding, so it's unusual, it's odd, it's out of the box. If we lived in other societies where we were experiencing this was a normal daily activity that everyone grew up with, yeah, that would be quite easy.
Let's talk to Kathy.
handle.
Kathy in Texas. I'm sorry to interrupt there. Kathy.
Hi, Dr. Drew.
Kathy?
As a mother, I respect other mothers' choices, but once the child starts walking, talking, has teeth, speaking in full sentences, then they should be, encouraged to grow and not to breastfeed. Breastfeeding a 3 to 4 year old or even a 7 to 8 year old to me is outrageous.
Jamie,
it is
Jamie, I'll have you respond to that. Jamie?
It's not good for the kid. It's wrong.
Jamie.
That is, unfortunately, that's our culture talking. I mean, that's a common opinion here, and it's not true. I was breastfed until I was 6 years old. I self-weaned. It was really, I had a wonderful childhood. It was really beneficial. I have wonderful memories of it, and I'm giving my children this. My sister wasn't breastfed. She was only breastfed for 2 weeks by my mother, and she saw how I was parented and wanted to be able to give her children that too. So all 5 of her children.
Why the
were
difference?
breastfed.
Why the difference between the two of you?
My sister's 14 years older than me, and my mom had bad information and was pressured to wean. So by the time I came around, she felt more confident in her choices to do what she felt was right for our family and for her children.
Okay, now next up, I've got a mom who says she was kicked out of her church for daring to breastfeed her child. This is another aspect of this story. We're taking your calls still, 855-373-7395. Very interesting. Don't go away. Nirvana Jeanette is a mom of 4 who says she was kicked out of church for breastfeeding her baby. Nirvana, tell us what happened.
I was breastfeeding my baby. We were in a small area, and I was asked to leave. Then when I tried to talk with the pastor, mind you, this went over the span of about a year of trying to converse with them, trying to show them that Scripture fully supports breastfeeding, and they wouldn't listen. And then we had a meeting with them, and my pastor compared me to a stripper. And conversation was over after that.
Nirvana, I want to get that straight. I don't understand. He accused you of wanting to be an exhibitionist, or he said it looked like a strip. What exactly did he say? That's awful, by the way. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was a hard time. It was just basically comparing the act of breastfeeding as a stripper would be, like you're saying, an exhibitionist. And I wholeheartedly disagreed. And I tried to, before that, I had tried to say, I was like, Jesus was probably breastfed 3 to 5 years old. And would anybody really go up to Mary and say something like that to her? So we had, after that conversation, it was just, there was no point. I had tried numerous times to have conversations and to really like I said, highlight the Scriptures, go in depth, go into history, and nothing was open. They weren't listening. They didn't even want to talk to me. In fact, I was ignored for a long time until I had to show up one day, and after they wouldn't respond to me anymore.
Your story is just so stunning. I'm just trying to imagine what it'd be like talking to the same gentleman that accused you of being like a stripper about anthropology of 2,000 years of the human experience and trying to get them to be rational. Jamie, I want to go to you. Are we just hung up on the breast? Is that what this is all about? We have a problem in America?
Yes, definitely. It's I think it goes back to our Puritan roots, and we've confused modesty, our cultural modesty with biblical modesty is completely different than that, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. So if we really look at the human body and really the breast in general, because it's not a sex organ. It's reproductive, and they're mammary glands. This is what they're for.
Oh, there are a bunch of men going to call in now. But anyway, let's go to Barbara in California. Keep this conversation going amongst women. Barbara, what do you got for us?
Hi, Dr. Drew. I'm a great-grandmother who's raised 3 generations of children and helped to raise some, and I believe breastfeeding is beautiful. I think that everyone should breastfeed their children when they can, but an infant is needing breastfeeding, not a preschooler, not a child of 3 or 4 or 5 years old. That's ridiculous. When you think about it, the children around them are going to tease them. They're going to be ridiculed. They're supposed to be learning growing skills. They're supposed to learn how to use a cup and a spoon and a fork. They're not supposed to be at their mother's breast at school age.
Yeah, Barbara, you bring up an interesting point, is that we do live in this culture, and there could be consequences for the kids. Nirvana, how late do you plan to breastfeed?
Pardon?
At my 3rd and my 4th, I'm going to be doing child-led weaning. I did a lot of research about it. Reason being, they have found like 2 or 3 types of stem cells in breast milk. And the World Health Organization, I wanted to go back on that, they recommend a minimum of 2 years.
Right.
So if we, children at a certain point, they're not going to nurse forever. They physically lose the ability to latch on correctly, and you can feel it, and the child loses interest.
And
so that's why it's called child-led weaning.
And I got to bring up here, too, because I've had patients over the years that have difficulty or can't breastfeed a child for various reasons, that women shouldn't feel inadequate if they can. It doesn't mean that your child's going to be impaired. We're talking about what's optimal here. And there's been some controversy thrown on this by this article and the magazine cover. Lee in Utah. Lee, what do you got?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I just wanted to say that I commend this mother and I respect her right to breastfeed as long as she wants to. I myself am a single mom, was not able to breastfeed, and I have to say that I take offense to the idea that I'm not mom enough because I have a thriving, healthy, intellectual daughter.
Well, listen, it's funny you would call it. I didn't know that was the content of your call, but I just made this comment that moms who have trouble, and your reason for not breastfeeding has got to be something probably the most common today, which is you're trying to make a living, right?
That's part of it. Part of it was medical,
yeah.
But also it's almost like when there's like the breastfeeding Nazis out there when you're having a child.
Well, and Jay, I'm going to go to Jeanne about that, because Jeanne, I once just made a comment that it's difficult to breastfeed for some women, and La Leche attacked me for about 24 months. And listen, I'm a huge fan of breastfeeding. Minimum of 2 years. I agree with all you guys. But what about the people that get overzealous about this?
I think that people can get overzealous on either end. And that's not really the issue. First off, it's important to realize Time put that tagline there. That's not Jamie's perspective. That's not most of our perspectives. There's lots of choices that we can make. And the key is to become informed and make the choice that works for you as a mother. What does your intuition tell you? What is best for you? With your husband, with your children, what works best for your family? So by bringing this out to the public, it's giving people an option. Wow, anthropologists are saying you can go 4, 5, 6 years. Until your molars come in, other mammals will still breastfeed, and that's 4 or 5. And that's perhaps the best for the child. But again, moms, it's about us and what works for our families. What are our conscious choices? But that's the point. Make conscious choices. Let's have the information so that we're able to make those choices for ourselves.
Jeanne?
It's
not blame and guilt.
No, yeah. Jeanne, to that end, I want to keep this conversation going. I actually think you guys are doing I hope you guys all three feel good about this conversation. I feel like you're elevating it. Good, a lot of shaking of the head, yes. Because this is elevating a little bit. It's easy to get salacious about this topic,
Absolutely.
but it is an important topic and one we want to continue. But I mostly want to hear, the callers have been great on this. Please stay with us on that. But quick sort of turn here for a second. I've got to do the HLN's 2012 election coverage, Our Country Votes. All right, we're back discussing the issue of breastfeeding beyond the 2-year recommendation of the pediatric organizations. And I've always mentioned repeatedly how brutal an environment Twitter can be. And of course, we're getting some intense responses to this conversation. Nirvana, I want to read you something from C to the A to the B and just get your response to it. It says, breastfeeding a 4-year-old is a form of sexual abuse. It is for the mother's gratification, thus perversion. How do you respond to that?
That is very far from the truth. In fact, breastfeeding actually decreases sexual hormones. So the whole mommy switch flips, and it really isn't anything to do about that. And it's quite sad that in our culture, you know, we're thinking that when moms, for example, like myself, and there's a lot of closet nursers, since I've come out about this, I have been getting phone calls, I've been getting messages.
Wait, Nirvana, slow down a second. You mean women feel ashamed of nursing? They have to hide it behind closed doors? That's bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I didn't understand either until, I guess, my mommy bubble burst, was, you know, women are ashamed to nurse in public, even, you know, infants, but once you get past like the little stage, they're afraid to. And I'm talking to moms that are like 3, 4, 5 years old, and it's pretty common that, I mean, it's gotten to the point that women are so ashamed to do it in general that they just don't do it. And as a culture, we're suffering for that. And additionally, the case, like the things like that happen to me, actually mine are some of the milder ones. I've heard of a lot worse ones. And it's gotten so bad that Best for Babes with Michelle Hickman has even started, they're going to be launching it soon, started a toll-free hotline for women to call in to get help, because it's just, we're shamed that much. And that's why I'm working so hard with
Let me ask something. I don't want to interrupt you. Is it men doing the shaming or women or both?
Honestly, I'm finding it predominantly women.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm not sure exactly why.
I'm running out of time, so I wanted to get some calls in here. Jennifer in California. Jennifer, go right ahead.
Hi, Dr. Drew.
Jennifer.
With no respect for you, as far as there's nothing wrong with America. There's something wrong with these women. Give me a break. I'm a mother. I didn't have to breastfeed. The woman breastfeeding in church, that's ridiculous. What about the lady on the front cover of the magazine when her child gets older? I mean, it's disgusting. Keep it to yourself. It's personal. Why don't you go do something better in your life, like raise money for juvenile diabetes? That's what my son has. You know, things like that. I mean, don't you women have anything better to do in your life? I mean, it's ridiculous. Look at you.
There we go. But Nirvana, there's exactly what you were talking about. That is the shaming of you, right?
Yes, and that's, you know, they say, well, why don't we go and help with juvenile diabetes? Well, that's actually, if you look into the research, that's what we're helping prevent.
Yeah.
We are, you know, it decreases leukemia, cancer, obesity, and as a turn, we're helping our society and everybody else. You know, through healthcare, millions of dollars are being saved, you know, when we breastfeed, and all these conditions that we're having, we are trying to help, and we are trying to do these things as mothers for our babies. And we don't go, and I know for me, I don't go up to mom and say something about how she chooses to feed her baby. And that's the wonderful thing about Georgia law, you know, when I'm trying to get this change,
Nirvana,
is we're having types.
I've got to interrupt you because I got to take another break. I'm going to do a quick sort of Twitter shout out to Hello Poodle, who says, "Holy crap, breastfeeding makes people angry. Get over it, people." Interesting. Jamie, Jeannie, they wanted to call attention to a website called awassa.org. Is that right? AWASSA. It supports children's nutrition in Ethiopia through breastfeeding. Check out that website. And again, we'll be back in a second with more of your calls. Well, Jamie, I want to finish with you. We started with you. You've been a great guest. I've been a bad host. I misspoke about that website. Please tell us what it actually is.
Awassa.org, it's AWASSA.org, is an organization that houses AIDS orphans, and it's a non-adoption facility. Wonderful, wonderful project. And then I just wanted to talk about the woman who left that angry comment, because she did state first that she didn't breastfeed and she didn't need to. And I think a lot of it comes from, a lot of that anger and animosity towards breastfeeding comes from the fact that they feel like they need to defend their choice. And I want to support mothers regardless of how they feed and nourish their child. We need to support each other. And there's your child, regardless of how you feed them. The most important thing is that you're making the best choice for your family, and that you you care for them, and that's really what we need to get through, is that we need to relieve the stigmas of all healthy parenting choices.
And Jamie, let me put a little coda on that and say, women, you three are very supportive of one another, but women need to support one another as much as possible and not be attacking and shaming. That was a sort of unhappy part of this story for me. But Jeannie, Nirvana, Jamie, thank you so much for being a part of this. Jamie, real quick again, what's the magazine we can find you on again?
Oh, it's Pathways to Family Wellness.
Pathways to Family Wellness. We will look for you on that magazine, and we'll hopefully have another opportunity to have this conversation. Oh, there it is. And Jamie, hopefully you'll join me in the studio next time. You've been a great guest, all three of you for that matter. Thanks to all my guests tonight, and of course,